After a secret Starfleet installation is attacked by a lone terrorist, Captain Kirk and the crew of the Enterprise are dispatched on a secret mission to retrieve the escaped terrorist. When Kirk finally comes face to face with the man he has been pursuing across the galaxy, secrets are revealed that put Kirk and his crew in immediate danger. Um, any volunteers who wants to go first, or I can? It's been a while since I've gone first, I guess.
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay.
Actually, let
Um.
me go first.
Oh shit! All right, Brian, have at it.
Since you went first on I'm sorry, Furious 6, and James never goes first, I'll go first.
That's just not true.
James has gone on first a couple times.
Exactly.
Several
Out of
times.
100 shows.
Several times. First of all, I haven't been on 100 shows, and I've gone first several times.
By the way, where's the summer movie draft update? Didn't I? What's the? Anyways,
Huh?
I just remember James doing it every week when he was winning.
Yeah, he has been doing it every week.
Okay.
We just haven't gotten this week's yet. That's all.
All right.
But I think, Brian, are you talking about me talking about it on the
Yeah.
show? The thing about that, though, is if I do that, I have to look at the box office.
Okay.
I can do it every week, but I've been trying to make it where the box office is a surprise to me as you read it off.
No, I understand. Okay. My fault. Okay,
It's
so
no
Star
fault.
Trek. Let's go back in line here. I was pretty pumped up to see this film, yet at the same time apprehensive because of kind of the experience I've been having recently about the movies we've been watching. A lot of horrible things, especially things I've been looking forward to. I avoided pretty much every trailer except the sneak peek. I guess the IMAX trailer that came out. Was it with Lord of the Rings that we saw that with?
Oh, like the opening moments.
Yeah, The Hobbit.
Yep.
That's what it was, right?
Yeah.
So ever
No,
since then, I pretty
I recall. Are you talking about that really long, like 9-minute thing?
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was in front of something else.
No, that was in front of the Hobbit.
Okay.
Yeah.
We went to a Limax and they showed it, which I'll get to in a second. So that's pretty much all I had, leading up to it. Didn't read any articles because I didn't want any spoilers happening. Um, but the closer we got to seeing the movie last night, the more I was hearing positive things about it. Um, so it got me kind of pumped up again to see it. Wasn't quite sure what to expect with the IMAX experience just because we saw Iron Man 3 a couple weeks ago, and like as we discussed, it was pretty disappointing. But as soon as the actual trailer started for this movie, I started noticing how a lot of the screen was filled up. They were showing movies that were going to be shown in IMAX. I think one was Pacific Rim,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one being Superman. Didn't watch them, but I noticed how big the green screen was. I guess because again, I don't watch trailers just because I don't want to get ruined.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I was pretty, I was like, all right, this might be pretty good. And of course, that the whole scene happens, basically what we saw from the IMAX trailer, and blown away again by the size and scope of everything. Now, I did kind of get a little scared because that beginning part, there's a lot of jumping around on the camera, and
Mm-hmm.
on the IMAX, it was kind of hard to focus. I don't know if James felt the same way or if you did, Dave,
Mm.
but that's what I was noticing. So I was a little bit worried that a lot of the movie was going to be like that, a lot of jumping around and kind of hurting my eyes, and um, but luckily it's pretty much that only part where they're running and trying to save Spock and the whole thing. After that, it calms down. But I was really amazed by the quality of this IMAX presentation.
Hmm.
Um, like you said, Dave, if it's a true IMAX experience, you're going to see a lot of scenes that are filmed in the very largest scope possible for the
Mm-hmm.
format, and that's what you see here. And the 3D even adds more to it. Um, so just by experience alone, it was awesome, awesome. And I highly recommend that anybody that goes out to see this movie, scope out, look for a real IMAX screen and see it there. Do not go to IMAX. Because I guarantee you're going to listen to this podcast, go to the IMAX, say, that wasn't so special. But in an IMAX screen, a real one, yeah, Wow, that's what I want to say about that. Even to the point where after the movie was over, I even thanked the usher. James heard me, telling them thank you for the experience,
Wow.
just because it was that awesome to me.
Huh.
Now you put all that experience into a movie that is actually just as great as that experience, um, and you have something special.
Hmm.
And to me, um, as a sequel goes, it might be right up there with Empire Strikes Back as one of the best sequels ever created.
Wow.
Um, I was totally invested in every part of the movie. I wanted to see what was going to happen, especially when we'll talk about in the spoilers, but once you find out who this person is, it ramps that up even more and more and more and more, and it doesn't let go, which is great filmmaking to me. I was just totally blown away. I was really happy, especially afterwards, and or actually during it too, because I was looking at my girlfriend and looking at James. By the way, James was in Nirvana while seeing this movie. No spoilers for James's review, but I'm pretty sure he might talk about this. Um, my girlfriend was smiling through it. I was smiling through it. Audience was clapping at certain parts to it. Um, and those, I mean, again, you put them all into one experience. The theater, the crowd, the movie itself is great. It's an awesome time, and by far the best movie this summer. Um, Even though it's not on my summer movie draft, I'll give it to James that this should be the biggest movie this summer, and I hope everyone goes out and sees it.
Wow.
I'll have more to add once we get to spoilers, but I was trying to be careful.
Glowing praise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spoilers are going to be pretty heavy for this movie, so I'm pretty sure all of us are going to have very brief comments with that for the film before we get into spoilers. But okay, I'll go next. Um, so uh, I have been a huge fan of J.J. Abrams for a while. I mean, I was one of the people that on my list of proposed directors for the next Star Wars films, he was my number 2 on there. Which a lot of people kind of flame me about, but I just really like his films. I like the way he films things. Lens flares aside, he just has a really good job. He does a really good job of like being able to film like kinetic action scenes or like really energetic scenes, but also giving you the way to be able to keep track of what's going on and follow them around. Which I thought was actually going to be a problem for this film because of the 3D, because usually 3D and quick cuts and quick edits and sweeping camera movements don't usually go well together. But I thought for the most part the 3D was well done, especially since this is his very first 3D film. Originally, he had planned to make the film in 2D, but early on in the production, he was kind of coerced into make it. He was kind of convinced, I guess, after seeing some demo reels of what the film would look like in 3D. So I'm actually really glad that he decided to go ahead and make it in 3D. Because I think the film definitely works even better than it already does because of that. But anyways, so yeah, I was a huge fan of the 2009 reboot. I liked it despite a lot of the issues I had with it. The film was like riddled with plot holes. It had some questionable things it did with the series, like the kind of what the series has been known for, which is more like a theological type thing as opposed to action oriented. And he made it much more action oriented. Which worked. It made Star Trek exciting for once, and that's exactly what this film is also. He replicated that really well with this new film as well. But uh, I I had some slight issues with the film. I thought, for one thing, I thought the opening moments of this film were a little bit troublesome for me, or I should say worrisome. I wasn't exactly sure what they were trying to do because, like, in the opening moments of this film, and I don't think this is much of a spoiler, it's like it mostly having to do with like a series of demotions, reassignments, promotions, and like disciplinary actions that all happen within minutes of each other, and then within minutes later they all get revoked or changed up again. It felt all very kind of manipulative to get certain points across and set up certain story arcs for later in the film that I think could have been probably handled a little bit smoother. But thankfully, the resulting stuff for me, when the film really took off is when Kirk and the crew got into the Enterprise and got on their mission. From that point forward, the movie was pretty much nonstop, and I enjoyed the film immensely from that point forward. But there are some things that, and I want to say that I think some of my nostalgia for some of the other movies in the series, which I cannot even hint towards until we get in the spoiler section, because that would just give away stuff. I think some of my nostalgia worked against me for some of the things that they did in this film, which I'll get into more clarification in the spoiler section. But it didn't detract from the experience for me. But there were a couple moments where I felt kind of pulled out of the experience because of my nostalgia for other films and other things that J.J. Abrams had kind of borrowed from the other timeline for this film. But that being said, I still enjoy. I love the cast that he got assembled. I still love Chris Pine as Captain Kirk. Zachary Quinto, I think he is still as engaging as ever as Spock. But for me, the number one thing that I loved about this movie was Benedict Cumberbatch as John Harrison, the guy that the terrorist that they're chasing across the galaxy. I've loved him as an actor ever since I saw him on the BBC series Sherlock. But this is the first time I ever got to see him as a villain, or like at least portraying a villain. And my God, was he amazing in this movie. He was without a doubt. I think without a doubt, he's the one thing I think people are going to take away from this film long after they see it, is his performance in this. And going into much more about it would also be spoilers, because his character was shrouded in mystery leading up to it, and there's a good reason why, which we'll get into in spoilers again. And I also really like the addition of Carol Marcus, who also, anybody familiar with the original Star Trek timeline, should know that name if you're a huge Trek fan. I really liked her addition. I thought Alice Eve was a nice addition to the group, and I hope. Well, I'm not going to say much more about her, because that would also be spoilers. Man, it's really hard to talk about this movie without spoilers. Jeez. But in general, I would say that anybody that enjoyed the first Star Trek, the other J.J. Abrams, will probably love this. I'm on the fence whether or not I like it better or not than the original Star Trek at this point in time, mainly because of some of the issues I have with it. But in general, I agree with Brian. This is without a doubt the best movie of the summer so far, and the other movies coming out after it are going to have to pull off some pretty miraculous stuff to top it. But first of all, let me say, before I get into my IMAX what I want to say about IMAX, I would recommend. This is a high recommendation for me. So yeah, I'm just going to put that out there. But IMAX, I don't know if it was my theater or what, because I saw this for the first time in a different IMAX theater. It was still a traditional IMAX. It was the huge screen and what have you. But during the IMAX shots, it didn't fill the whole screen for me. I'd say about 1/4 of the top of the screen was never filled up on the shots, and basically all the shots on this movie that are in IMAX are the deep space shots, or like you almost never see an IMAX shot where it's like an actual character's talking or anything like that. And there were moments where I was kind of like, I took off my glasses and I looked at the top of the screen, and it's like, yeah, there is a black bar at the top of the screen. So I was kind of caught off guard, or confused, perplexed by what type of IMAX this was, because I know for a fact that when we've seen other stuff like Dark Knight Rises and Skyfall, that those films did take up the entire screen. And I was wondering if it was maybe a problem with the IMAX I was at, which I don't know how that could be, because it didn't feel like the picture was cut off at all. But anyways, that was that was kind of weird. I didn't know about that. And my girlfriend was kind of pissed about it too, because she went there expecting it to take up the whole screen, and she kept on pointing out to me. She's like, it's not on the whole screen. So I was like, I don't know what to say. So I was kind of confused by that. But other than that, the entire presentation I was happy with. And yeah, from top to bottom, this movie is pretty amazing. And I'm once again, I cannot wait to see what he does with Star Wars now. So, but
Hell
anyways, James, what were your thoughts on Star Trek Into Darkness?
Before I discuss my thoughts, I want to kick this to Brian a little. Was that your experience with the IMAX, Brian?
I didn't notice it, but I wasn't
No,
looking for it.
No, I looked at the top of the screen. It was near the top of the screen the majority of the time.
Mm.
I mean, there are times where it
think
switches, with the non-action scenes, but anytime
Sure.
those certain scenes were supposed to fill it up, I didn't see any cut off or at least anything that was obvious.
Okay.
It-
Like I said, I can't explain it. All I can tell you is what I saw, and it did not fill the whole screen.
I pointed my eyeballs up to the top of the screen because sometimes you got to focus, like to make sure exactly what you see.
Mhm.
And it was like maybe a foot or a yard away from the top of the screen, but for the most part, it was the full screen.
It didn't affect my experience with the movie. When I had my glasses on and I didn't pay attention to it, I was fully immersed into the film. But when I did look at it though, it did not fit the whole screen, which was kind of weird to me. I don't know how an IMAX format wouldn't fit the whole screen. It was kind of weird.
Maybe they shifted it a little bit so people on the lower levels could see.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. But one thing I thought it was awesome that when I'm trying to avoid the spoiler here, when they speak different languages, I liked how on this IMAX screen it's so big that you had to look literally to your left to read it.
Yes, yes.
To the right to see the other part.
Yes.
And I was in a good seat, and I still had to do that. Couldn't even imagine if you were close to it. Anyways, all right.
Okay, so for me, directly after I saw this movie, I even mentioned to Brian that I wasn't sure how I'd be able to discuss this without just being in major spoilers.
What Dave just said.
So I'm just gonna say like some surface things here, and then I'll have more to discuss when we get into spoilers. But the thing is, there's one. Well, before I move on, I need to talk about the lady who was sitting next to me.
Uh-oh.
Oh boy.
So first of all, I don't know if you knew this, Brian. She was with this other group, and they couldn't get 5 seats together, so they got 3 behind us and 2 next to us. And because I heard them discussing that when they walked in, and it just so happened that my luck was this lady had to sit right next to me, and it's not exactly that she was talking throughout the movie because she wasn't, but she was reacting throughout the movie, like going, mm-hmm, uh-oh, mm-hmm, woo, all of that, like literally every 30 to 60 seconds. Like I was trying to, I was like, wait, it can't be as frequent as I think it is. Let's see how long she can go without doing anything. And it was like 30. I was counting off in my head. It was like 30 seconds. Every 30 seconds, I'm mm-hmm.
And I said, James, aren't you used to that?
Yes.
Oh my God.
The racist comment of the week.
Of course.
So anyway, no, that's not the racist comment of the week. The racist comment of the week is that Brian's new nickname for me is Black Dave.
What?
Oh God.
So anyway,
Explain it.
I don't know. It's your thing. I don't know how to
So
explain
basically, I
it.
misspoke and said Dave instead of James, and then James gave me a hard time. I go, okay, Black Dave.
Oh my God.
That was it.
Fantastic.
Anyway, now I've lost my train of thought. Oh, so the lady next to me. So I mean, and Brian after the movie said, "How come you didn't say anything to her?" if she had been talking, I could have said, can you please not talk during the movie? How do I tell someone don't react?
Can you stop reacting, please?
Right, exactly.
And by the way,
Like,
I think it's funny
how do you
that
do that?
I think it's funny that James is complaining about someone making reactions when he hosts the reactionary news segment.
Okay. So, but the next thing is that after the movie, people stayed around during the credits, and she turned around and she was talking to the three people behind us, and she actually said the thing that I think we're all holding as a spoiler. She said, "I knew that all along." Right.
Okay.
And so that
She
made
has to
me
be bullshitting.
no. She said it as though everybody knew that all along. And so I went into IMDb, and it actually lists the spoiler right there on the main page. So I'm thinking that this was not that much of a surprise to people.
That sucks.
Yeah, I think it really, because I was waiting, anticipating, isn't it? That what's going to happen? And then when it really happened, then I was like, or when it was really revealed, then I was really excited. And I don't think other people had that experience.
By the
Because
way, this was James in the theater, basically like this, with his hands together,
I
hoping.
don't, I don't think Dave can see you.
Oh well.
Oh, I can see. That's awesome.
And I'm not joking. That
Were you like
was him.
praying to the heavens?
I, I was when it was getting close to being revealed, and it was obvious in my mind because of such a fan that I am. Like once they started leading breadcrumbs, I was like, "Oh, it's gonna happen." And then, but I was trying not to. I was trying not to react. Like I didn't want to do any of that. So,
You should have. That would have been funny.
so anyway, let's move on. I thought that the 3D was great in this movie. It is such a much better experience than what we had with Iron Man. I also thought the IMAX was great in this movie. Like I said, the majority of the time, it seemed to me like the screen was being filled.
Okay.
And this is an action movie, so there's a lot of action scenes, and that is what a lot of people are kind of complaining about. I don't have the personal complaint myself, but a lot of people are saying that it's gone way too far towards just being a summer action flick instead of being a Star Trek movie.
Yeah, people had that complaint about the 2009 one as well.
Okay, see, I didn't
But
know
I think
that.
there's a reason for that too. I mean, they kind of. It's almost like a revenge story in a way.
Yeah. I mean, once again, we cannot talk about it without getting the spoilers. Right. But the sources that this film takes from other Star Trek lore was able to do both, which this film feels like it was able to deliver on the action, but there was some emotional stuff that it kind of didn't quite nail the way that the other one did. So, but I'll get into that in spoilers.
Yeah, I'll have to get more from you on that. But so we're talking about IMAX, we're talking about 3D. I think we got to talk about J.J. Abrams.
Yes.
And J.J. Abrams equals lens flare. Because there were points in this movie where I was like, what is being reflected off of what? Because something is shining in my eyes. And what is he doing? Like I didn't, there's a lot of lens flare in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, is it just that he thinks it looks cool or I mean, there are points like when you point towards the sun where it makes a little sense to show lens flare to kind of, represent what is actually going on. But when you're just like in a room and there's lens flare, I don't understand what his point is. And I
It's
don't
it's
understand what he's trying to do.
it's just a stylistic choice. It's like,
But what is that supposed to represent?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the only times, I noticed it a lot in his last movie, Super 8, where there would be lens flares in a scene that had no light. Which was really distracting. But I mean, for this film, it feels like there's light sources almost everywhere. So I could explain away why they were there, but there were times where they were so prominent on screen, especially with the 3D, where all I was looking at was the lens flares. But I don't know. Overall, it didn't really bother me that much. So
Okay. I just I've started to notice it now because he's known for that. Perhaps if like this was the first time he had ever done it, may not have noticed it, but it's kind of obvious now. One thing that I think he did do ingeniously is that in the first film they set up this alternate timeline,
yes,
and it allows us to interact with the Star Trek cast that we know and love, but without directly following what has happened before, and simultaneously, therefore, without throwing away, the old lore, because they've established that this is a completely separate timeline. So other things can happen than what happened before, and you're not discounting or discrediting what happened before.
yeah,
In the old series. I will agree about Benedict Cumberbatch, but I knew going in that I am a huge fan of this guy, and he did not disappoint. You can be a fan of someone and you go, oh, they turned in the stinker on that one,
yeah,
but he did not disappoint. I was so happy,
yeah,
just for him and maybe even his career. Like this may open the door for other things. I hope he sticks with Sherlock as long as he can, because I love that show. I hope this actually causes people to get on board with that series, and try to catch up before the new season.
yeah.
About this movie being the best summer movie so far, I have enjoyed it more than I've enjoyed almost any movie this year. But the thing is, I think that the box office has to be looked at as a disappointment. It's definitely not going to be the biggest movie in terms of box office this year.
Yeah.
It's being dwarfed by Iron Man. It'll never catch what Iron Man has right now. I think Iron Man's around 350 right now. It's not going to catch that, and Iron Man's still going.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about that right now. And I think maybe it's time to go into spoilers. But before we go into spoilers, let me just say specifically that this is a recommend for me. It's a recommend in 3D, in IMAX. You're not going to hear me saying that too often. So when I say that, see it in 3D, see it in IMAX, and I think you're going to have a good experience.
I wholeheartedly agree. Okay, cool. So nobody else got anything to bring up before we get into spoilers here. We can move on. Just a couple plugs here. So you can subscribe to the show and download any new or old episodes via iTunes or the RSS feed located on the website, which is LightsRemoteAction.com. And you can follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/The LO Ray Show. We are now heading into our spoiler section. So if you have not seen the movie yet and don't want anything ruined, then we suggest you check out now and return once you have seen it, because we are about to spoil the shit out of this thing. Man, so many things to spoil with this, it's hard to know where to start. I can always start with my thing, but it's kind of going deep into the spoiler section. Once we go there's not much left to spoil.
Okay, then I have a light spoiler thing that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
And it's just because I didn't understand what was going on. And it is the practically very first thing that we see, which is Kirk and Bones running away from this indigenous population of this planet.
Oh yeah.
So I understood what Spock and that other crew was doing in the volcano, but what were Kirk and Bones doing?
They're distracting them.
Distracting them from what?
Why weren't they supposed to be the ones observing them?
Maybe. I just thought they were a distraction.
They were running away.
I figured that they were observing them and then they got spotted.
Okay.
But Kirk had like a scroll or something.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
I was completely baffled. Like, I thought, okay, we're going to explain how their plan had like two characteristics to it, like the Spock thing and the Kirk thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the plan was what Spock was doing.
Well,
I didn't understand that Kirk was doing anything that helped what their mission was.
What Spock was doing was a deviation of the plan, because later on we found out that Kirk was only supposed to go there and view them, but he instead decided to try and save them. So Spock was actually acting on Kirk's command, which was against what they were supposed to be doing.
No. When I say their mission, I don't mean their Starfleet mission. I mean what they were doing.
Okay. Where I think Kirk and McCoy were doing what their Starfleet mission was.
See, I don't see that. I don't see
Who
that
cares?
observing. I don't see that observing means that you have to get down on the ground. Haven't they always observed from above?
No. In the Next Generation, they had a couple episodes. One of the more famous ones called "Who Watches the Watchers," where it deals specifically with them looking at a civilization on the ground and like being embedded with them, but like hidden from them.
And you think that's what they were doing?
It's possible.
They didn't have the face paint or anything, though.
No, but they had their faces covered for. I guess that was what they were going for. I don't know, but I just kind of explained it away that way because I'm used to from previous series.
That doesn't explain it for me, but let's move on.
Okay.
Okay, I'll talk about some minor things.
Okay.
The introduction of the Klingons was awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Perfect costumes, perfect makeup, perfect weapons, and then that whole shootout thing was just amazing.
And it was the first time in a long time in the Star Trek universe where the Klingons felt like a threat again.
Yeah. I asked James because I know he's a big fan of Darth Vader. If he liked the Darth Vader motif in the masks that they wore, because it seemed to me like a legion of Darth Vaders that are really Klingons underneath. Yeah, that was awesome. I love the little minor bits that they had in it with the characters. Even with all the amount of characters, I thought they used them correctly. Like giving Sulu the command of the Enterprise, and it was just Simon Pegg running back and forth. Just awesome stuff like that.
Not just running back and forth, but he was on his communicator updating them with the fact that he's still running.
Yeah, and it makes it even better when it was an IMAX because the screen's so huge and that 3D depth you get of how long he has to run. There's some good stuff.
Yeah. But
what did you want to bring up, Dave?
Okay. Well, for my thing, it's bringing up the big spoiler. So if you really want to be kept in the dark about who Benedict Cumberbatch's character is and his relation to other lore in the Star Trek timeline, then really you need to leave right now because I'm about to just ruin it all for you.
5.
But I'm telling you, I think everybody else knows.
I know,
3,
but
2, 1. Okay, now you're safe.
All right, so Benedict Cumberbatch, his character is not actually John Harrison, but his character's name is Khan. If I remember correctly, his last name is Khan Sin Soon or something like that. I can't remember. They say his full name one time in this movie, but I can't remember exactly. But anyways, so that was the big reveal. And to anybody who doesn't know, Khan was a nemesis of Captain Kirk's from the original series. who was actually carried over into the film series in the second film called Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. So going into what James said earlier about how well or how ingenious it was what J.J. Abrams and his crew of writers did for the first film about creating this alternate timeline, where they didn't necessarily need to follow along the same lines as the original series and crew did. They could kind of forge their own path, which leads into, I was actually kind of perplexed of why he wanted to tackle the Wrath of Khan storyline, because the Wrath of Khan film is considered by most to be the best Star Trek movie ever made. It set up a lot of things in the Star Trek franchise that became common after that. The fact that Star Trek was more like seen like a naval fleet at that point, where they had, it just the structure of Starfleet and everything was really set in grain right there. The theme of Star Trek and the Star Trek Next Generation show was set in that movie, and they also brought in, of course, a character that was introduced in the TV series into the film series, which had a lot of like history behind it. So I was really interested in knowing what he would add or what he would do with the storyline from that, because in my eyes anyways, the Wrath of Khan film is about as near perfect as a Star Trek film as I've ever seen. And I think what he did with this, the way he kind of reintroduced Khan into Kirk's life or Kirk's story in this alternate timeline, was actually pretty ingenious. How it wasn't Kirk that actually discovered his ship with all his crew on it. It was actually somebody else that discovered it, and we got to see like an alternate timeline of what would have happened if somebody else discovered it. And it made sense what they did with his character, where they were trying to exploit him and his power and his knowledge and his intellect. But for me, the thing I'm going to jump ahead here real far. The thing that I took a slight issue with that kind of drew me out of the experience a little bit was some of the direct references to Wrath of Khan, as opposed to just the characters and themes of Wrath of Khan. Most notably, the moment with Kirk and Spock in the radiation chamber. Now, to those that don't know, in the original Wrath of Khan, the roles were reversed, where it was Spock inside the radiation chamber and it was Kirk on the outside. And basically, the scene played out the same exact way, with the two of them giving their farewells and their goodbyes. And I thought in this film, they actually, both Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto, did actually a really good job with their performances. But here's where my problem came from. And this is going to lead into another issue shortly. I just don't think that the history between the actors themselves in these roles and them playing these characters was there to fully make that scene impact me the way that the original one did. Where by the time that Spock had died in the Wrath of Khan, there was like years, maybe I think even like a decade by that point, where these two characters had time to, kind of work their way into like the fan psyche, and just they just had more time with them, and their connection together was a lot more. I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it was a lot more established. Thank you, James. Thank you. And I think that the effect of that scene for me in this film was lessened because I didn't have that connection to these characters I did with that film. But like I said, the actors pulled it off. I thought they did a good job with it, and I was going along with it until they completely ruined and missed the point of that scene from Wrath of Khan, which was, the fact that, sacrifice. And Kirk learning a lesson, in this film it was supposed to be Kirk learning a lesson, because we clearly find out in the beginning of this film that he was most likely given this command well before he should have. because he's still reckless. He's still not following rules. And this was supposed to serve as like a moment for him growing up. And I think that the effect of that scene was cheapened when like moments later after he died, they brought him back to life. And to those that don't know, the Wrath of Khan film ended with Spock dying, and he was still dead at the end of that film. They didn't do any miraculous thing to bring him back. Now, that being said, the third film, they did a miraculous thing that brought him back. But for the time being, that was a really emotional moment in that film that really, it worked. It worked so well. And I don't think that worked as quite as well in this movie.
But there was no way to do it. You can't end a Star Trek movie with James Kirk dead.
Which is why I don't think they should have went that way. They should have found some other way to do it. They shouldn't have taken that scene from Wrath of Khan. They should have done like what he's done with everything else, like he did in this film, where he just changed things. He didn't need that scene in this movie. It did not need to be there. And I think he kind of shoehorned it in there without truly truly understanding what that scene meant in that other film.
See, I tend to disagree with that because, I mean, me being a comic book fan, that's and the issue of time and the time that you've had with a character is often an issue for me, and there's no way that they're going to be able to replicate the sense of bonding that the fans had with the original Kirk and Spock, you know, after having had a full run on the TV show and one movie under the belt, and this being the second movie, you know, with Wrath of Khan, however many years ago. It's probably like 20 or 30 years ago.
30 years ago, probably,
right.
Yeah.
So there's no way to replicate that, and I think he did the best that he could by, at the beginning of this movie, having these instances where Kirk was trying to kind of reach out to Spock and kind of elicit an emotional like response, like when he was telling Spock he was going to miss him, and Spock just looked at him.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. And then in this scene, Spock admits that they are friends.
Yes.
And which is a lot for him.
Yes.
You know, it's a lot for this character. And so I think they did the best that they could in that scene. And so and they had already done the thing with Khan's blood and the, I forget what that gerbil looking thing is called. It's
the Tribble?
Tribble, exactly. They had already done that. So the moment that he was dying, I was like, oh, they're going to use the blood.
But see, doesn't that diminish the impact of what the Wrath of Khan movie did? Where you didn't think, there was no thought in your back of your head that Spock was going to come back.
Right.
In this, you immediately understand, like, oh, well, they're just going to bring him back because of the blood.
Maybe I wasn't thinking, but I didn't even think that. I was totally invested in how they were changing it, which was surprising me, because you got to remember, and this is a huge spoiler again, the original Spock shows up.
Yes.
And
yes.
Because he asked, you know, he basically, in a roundabout way, talks about what Khan is in his generation or in his timeline. But you're still not sure at that time if he's going to be the same or not, at least in my mind. And then
that was my question.
Huh?
That was my question, because they were kind of jumping to conclusions that he was going to be the same. But what if he was actually a good guy at that point?
Yeah, because
I don't think we knew.
Yeah, the new timeline that was created from the last movie could change everything. Maybe something happened to Khan where now he's a good guy and not a bad guy.
Well, remember the reason why Khan was vengeful against Kirk in the original timeline was because Kirk abandoned him on a planet and his people on a planet, and the planet died around them, and he had like
well, that's
30 or 40.
That's in the movie though, but Khan was a villain before that in the TV show.
Well, no, In the TV show, yeah, because that's when he found the pod, the Botany Bay, and they brought it on board, and Khan tried to steal the ship from Kirk immediately. And then and then the show, Kirk abandoned them on a planet. And then in the movie picked up where they get found on the planet.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that Khan wasn't good before that.
No, he wasn't. They even said in this movie that he was a criminal. In this movie, they said that.
But that's the point that Brian and I are trying to make is that because this is an alternate timeline, maybe the things that made him bad before haven't happened. So you don't really know if he's a bad guy or not.
But didn't
and especially at that point in time, he was kind of helping them.
Yeah. But didn't the timeline didn't split though until that moment with Kirk's dad dying at the beginning of the original film.
I understand,
but I don't know.
And you're saying because Khan was already in suspended animation at that point?
He was already, because they said he'd been in suspended animation for like 300 years.
Yeah, I understand.
So, I don't know. I was thinking maybe if who brought him out, his interactions with them may have been different, and that may have led him down a different path. But considering who he ran into, which was the Peter Weller character,
which he was awesome, by the way.
Yes.
Except he looked too villainous automatically in the beginning, I thought.
I think that's his face.
Yeah.
Well, and Brian and I mentioned this before we started recording, which was they did a really good job of in that trailer, the original trailer, anyways, of making this movie look like a completely different movie, because Peter Weller never showed up in any of the original trailers. So, and when they first showed him, I was like, oh, he's on here for a cameo, and he ends up being a major character.
Well, the current trailer ruins a lot more of it, but the teaser trailers didn't really explain any of that stuff.
No.
There's a lot of quick snapshots and everything else, but
yeah,
like I said, I just like the fact that you just wasn't quite sure what was going to happen in this particular timeline. And when Spock asked what happened, or whatever that last comment was, it cuts off right there.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if Spock told him what would eventually happen, or what he would have to sacrifice. I'm guessing he didn't. Like, you have to find that out for yourself type thing.
No, I don't think Spock goes into details.
Yeah. But you don't know. It just cuts off right
I'm
there.
talking about Spock Prime, not the new Spock.
Right.
But what was I going to say? Oh, I cut you off for a reason. I can't remember.
While you're thinking about that, I want to go back to the when the two Spocks.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Let me just say it.
Oh,
now.
okay, go ahead.
I personally hope that J.J. Abrams sits Leonard Nimoy down and just films like a load of little snippets, like what he did in this movie. Because I mean, Leonard Nimoy is not a young guy.
Yeah,
he's not going to be around for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy those little insertions of him. And I hope they can get some stuff down on film.
Yeah.
For future projects.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool. Although it'd be kind of morbid.
It's all right.
It's like, hey, Leonard Nimoy, you're not going to be around much longer. You want to be recording all this random shit for us?
I say the same, or I was saying the same thing about James Earl Jones to lay down some Vader stuff, but I guess we're going in a different direction now.
Yeah. My thing I wanted to say about the Spock and Spock conversation, or Spock and Spock Prime conversation, I thought it was actually really cool that how they handled the given that they're doing this alternate timeline thing, it gave them a unique opportunity to fill in their characters about another character. Usually they would have to go through all this life learning stuff to learn about somebody, where Spock just basically dials up himself and asks him, hey, what's up with this dude? And he gets an entire history on everything that he's done in another timeline. And I thought that was actually kind of cool, but I also thought it was a bit like a cheat of sorts.
Yeah.
Where they're like, hey, we don't know how to fight this guy. Let's just find out what happened in the other movie.
What happened in your movie, Prime Spock?
But I have another. This is now, like I said, the 2009 movie had a lot of plot holes. I don't think this movie had nearly as many plot holes. But this one for me was a little bit of a head scratcher. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I could very well be wrong on this. But when Spock popped up on there and they started asking him about Khan and everything, the first thought that entered my mind was, why isn't Zachary Quinto's Spock? Why isn't he asking Spock to send help? Because their entire time they've been cut off communications. They haven't been able to transport anywhere, and they finally get through to somebody, and the only thing he asks them is, hey, do you know about this dude Khan? Okay, cool, and he cuts him off. While they're still facing off against a ship that's going to destroy them.
I understand.
And
I was under the impression there was no one else that was close, though.
Well, here's the other thing. The Enterprise was in orbit of Earth.
Yeah, I didn't get that reveal until they started crashing.
So the entire time they were up there battling it out.
I don't understand that. I feel like we missed something.
Yeah.
Where they went closer to Earth, because I don't feel like this whole battle took place there.
The rest of the Federation was busy, just like the Shield.
Oh, come on.
Well, to be fair, when they got knocked out of warp, by the Dreadnought, when they got knocked out of warp, they were near the Earth's moon. That's where they first landed when they came out of warp. But I guess they slowly drifted or something towards Earth at some point. But my question is, with Starfleet being there and the moon, I mean, considering these gigantic ships and sensors that they have, I think anything within proximity as close as the moon would pop up on their radar as hey, there's two ships out there blowing the shit out of each other.
And one of them's the Enterprise.
And one's the Enterprise. Another one
wasn't the big ship. They were aware of that big ship though, right? So maybe they thought
that was a secret. That was a secret thing, which is why he had to send Scotty to go check it out. So my thoughts were how come this entire time there was no Starfleet there to help them?
I personally did not get that they were in that close proximity to Earth the whole time.
Yeah.
If that is the case, and I'm not going to concede that because it doesn't make sense. But I mean, I hear exactly what you're saying, but this whole thing falls apart if that's how it happened. But so I didn't get that they were that close the whole time, because if that was the case, Earth should have sent some number of ships out to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Or they should have been hailing people or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Because somehow or another they ended up in Earth's atmosphere.
No, wait, was the Enterprise's communications disabled?
Yes. But
so
they
couldn't
still
reach out to anybody.
But they communicated with Spock somehow.
They communicated across the universe to New Vulcan, but they couldn't communicate to Earth that they can see outside the window.
What's wrong, James?
Right. No, I refuse to accept that that's what happened.
It would be awesome though, James, if you look to your right when you talk, so it looks like you're talking to us in the stream, since there's 3 boxes.
But anyways, that potential major plot hole aside, I really loved the final act of this movie where the ships
made me knock over my drink.
where the ships were crashing into the atmosphere.
Hell yeah.
That was awesome. That was so good.
Especially for it not to be the actual ending.
Yes, yeah, the foot chase. I was like, what? The movie's still going?
Especially seeing Spock run with his bangs was pretty awesome.
That was really cool. That was an unexpected little addition there at the end. Although I kept on wondering how the hell Spock. I mean, I know Vulcans are supposed to be a little bit stronger than humans, but I was wondering how the hell that Khan wasn't just ripping them apart at some points.
Well, I liked how he was using his, Vulcan powers kind of.
Oh my God, that was awesome. That was so cool.
Yeah. Honestly, after the movie, I was smiling so much because I know episode 7 is gonna be freaking awesome. Seeing this stuff and Abrams is not even a Star Trek fan, and he made this. He actually knows Star Wars.
Yeah.
Oh.
But like I was saying, there's a lot of Star Trek fans who are not happy with this because they feel that it diverges too much from
But
what
it's a different
Star Trek
story.
is. But I understand that the story leads to the action.
Yeah.
But Star Trek was known for like having a moral and having people come to some realization and stuff like that. And there wasn't a lot of that. This was a a more by the numbers good guy versus bad guy type of thing.
Yeah.
I like the story of them trying to start a war with the Klingons.
Yes, which
That's coming.
yeah, I was going to
war
say
is
it's like
coming.
the Klingons were clearly established as the new threat in this film.
Yeah.
Clearly.
And what's sad is that in the first movie they were kind of glanced over, even though that's where they kind of the bad guy from the last film ended up at one point.
Oh yeah, that was a deleted scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know about
I
that,
don't
James?
remember anything about Klingons in the first.
That's why I said it was the deleted scene.
Well, they briefly bring it up in the actual movie, but in
Yeah.
the Blu-ray or the DVD, they show the scene.
Yeah.
He's basically captured in the Klingon prison, I guess. Is that what it is, Dave?
Yeah, yeah.
And so he kind of starts the whole process of the Klingons, being aware.
You mean the Romulan guy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wow,
It-
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
yeah. They
Because
basically
it was deleted.
I understand, But I mean,
it was the Klingon
sounds
ships
major.
that surrounded him, right, and captured him because his power was dead, right? Dave, if I remember.
Yeah,
correctly?
yeah, something like that. Yeah, because I mean, the way it appears now in the original film was that he sat there for 30 years waiting for somebody to show up, and that just seems completely stupid.
No, he brings up the prison in the original film too.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying the way it appears.
Yeah.
The way it appears that he'd been waiting there the entire time. But
So,
in reality, he had been captured by the Klingons, and he had been like off doing other stuff.
Yeah, so Kirk's dad hits the ship. The Romulans are basically floating in space. Klingons come and check it out. They capture him. They put him in prison, and then he escapes.
Yeah. But yeah, the Klingons were supposed to make a brief appearance in that film, and they didn't. But I really like how they were used here. They did a really good job of foreshadowing things to come. And I thought it was interesting that they went back to the whole exploring the galaxy.
Yeah.
Mission for the Enterprise crew. They even said like nobody's ever gone on a 5-year mission this before. So are we gonna start out the next one with them actually exploring new worlds?
Well, see, that's what I say to the people who are disappointed with the direction of this film. It seems like he's firmly pointed the series into the direction of the original Explorer Star Trek.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
and,
would they even talk about that stuff or show that stuff? Or
I think
would it be like a quick snippet like they did in this film, where they have some type of Indiana Jones, James Bond adventure, and then the movie starts? And by the way, whoever created this soundtrack and is awesome because it gets you pumped up for the film.
the
like
music,
no
music,
other.
right?
Huh?
The music, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Giacchino. He's J.J. Abrams' secondhand man. So
Yeah, I mean when they go dun 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 dun, that's an awesome thing, man.
yes, he did a really good job of expanding upon the original Star Trek soundtrack.
Wow.
Yeah.
So props to him. I just want to put that out there.
Yes. Yes.
So, like I was saying, if you go to IMDb,
Mhm.
it lists Cumberbatch simply as Khan.
Really?
Oh my God.
Yes.
Wow.
So that's why I'm saying, I mean, we're tiptoeing around this stuff. It's out there.
Oh my God.
Underneath, if you go to Empire Strikes Back, does it say Anakin? Underneath.
Darth Vader / Anakin.
Right, but what I'm saying, it doesn't even say John Harrison / Khan. It says Khan.
Wow. That's horrible.
Wow. Can you send a letter to them or something? Is there like a thing?
Well, not to put too fine a point on it, but they also ruined the ending of Fast and the Furious 6 on there also. Like listed in the top 5 actors is somebody that shows up at the end of Fast and Furious 6.
Go back to that Star Trek IMDb and go down. There's quotes there. Here's the quotes. Khan, I'm going to make this very simple for you. Spock, Captain, Khan, your crew for my crew. Spock, you betrayed us.
God.
What?
That's awesome.
Wow. Wow. Speechless.
And then like
I'm telling
the
you,
review here says
the people want their movies ruined for them anymore.
And then the review says Into Darkness is brightened up in an impressive 3D, but its plot conventions are predictable. Of course, you read IMDb. Wow.
I don't know how this movie is predictable. I honestly didn't know where it was going.
Because you saw the trailers.
Well, the trailers made it look like exactly like the synopsis I gave at the beginning, which were it was a manhunt. I mean, we had joked a lot about this being Star Trek Impossible. You know, mission Star Trek or something. But this
That long trailer made it look like it had a lot more to do with that guy who, you know, there was the family who was trying to save their daughter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's like a side note on this. That's just how this all gets started.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Wow. All right,
Yeah,
so what's next week?
Well, I mean, Fast and Furious, we already saw that. We talked about it briefly, but
Oh shit.
there's Hangover Part 3,
Mm-mm.
and the animated film Epic.
I'll get back to you.
And I will hopefully be seeing Before Midnight that week, James.
I think I might try to see Francis Ha.
Oh, I've heard good things about that. Good things about that. So, but yeah, I guess right now it's up in the air what we're going to be talking about next week, since everything seems to be kind of like not really
Crap.
on our radar. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think Fast and the Furious 6 is good, James.
But I'm saying, but you guys have kind of already seen that.
Yeah, yeah. And I've actually recently saw Hangover Part 2 in preparation for Part 3. So
Had you seen Part 2 before?
No.
Okay. What did you think of it?
Well, I was gonna talk about it more next week if I
Okay.
saw it when I saw the third one, which I'm planning on seeing. But yeah,
Now, you know what I like. Do you think I should try to see Hangover Part 2 and then see 3?
what did you feel? How did you feel about the first Hangover?
It was all right. I didn't hate it. It was funny. I laughed sometimes.
See, I didn't care for the first Hangover. I didn't.
And
I didn't really, but I saw it way after the fact, where everybody had told me it was the most amazing comedy ever made.
mhm.
So it was doomed to failure, and I didn't find that movie all that funny, to be honest. But I think the sequel, while it's a carbon copy of the first film, just in a different location,
Which is why I didn't see it.
I think it's kind of got like a darker tone to it, and some of the stuff that happens in it, I think, was a little bit funnier than in the original. I don't know. I just think the location of Thailand or Bangkok was a lot more interesting to me than Las Vegas. And I think that's because, you know, Las Vegas, I know that town pretty well. And whereas Bangkok was like a new location that I don't know that much about. I don't know. But I thought it was okay. I definitely laughed more than I did at the first one, but that's not saying much. I still don't understand the huge appeal of these movies.
Yeah, you're not selling it.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Okay.
So TBD.
Yeah, to be determined. We'll figure it out. But okay, I guess we can end this. So let me wrap this up. So you can listen to the show. Oh, sorry. You can subscribe to the show and download any new or old episodes via iTunes or the RSS feed located on the website, which is lightsremoteaction.com. You can follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/the Show, and my own personal Twitter at twitter.com/the Show. I'm here.
What's going on? Brian.
What?
Okay.
We submit all our reviews and articles to both filmwatch.com and examiner.com and movieviral.com, which, by the way, you should be able to catch my written review for Fast and the Furious 6 on movieviral.com on Tuesday of this coming week, so just be on the lookout for that.
When did you finish writing it?
Oh, about a week ago. Yeah. So yeah, keep a lookout for that. You can also you can email us if you have any comments, questions, or concerns at either lightsremoteaction@gmail.com, which comes to me, or you can send it to James at the LRAshow@gmail.com. All music for the show is provided through musicalley.com and by the music group The Divine Madness, whose work can be found on Amazon.com, iTunes, or through their website at thedivinemadness.net. You can find links to both sources on the website at lightsremoteaction.com as well. So yeah, that's gonna do it. So we'll be back next week with some more movies to talk about. Who knows what the hell those movies will be at this point, and hopefully a return visit from a past co-host. So we'll see. But in any case, yeah, that's it. We're done. Everybody out there, take care. Have a good week.
Live long and prosper.
Oh my God. All right.